nothing but faith. There's things far too great that I want to accomplish. I'm hoping 25 hours a day, but something good works out, and I'm just like, dang. Think everything's gonna be okay. Yeah, I'm like, dang. Think you might just know the way. I'm like, dang.
Welcome to Dang.
Welcome to Dang. I'm Todd Bridges.
And I'm Bettijo Bridges. And our guest today is Kim Boyer, a nationally recognized elder law attorney and the founder of Boyer Law Group in Las Vegas. With decades of experience helping families navigate aging, caregiving, and long-term planning, Kim's the kind of person you want to have on speed dial when your parents start having more questions than answers about what the future holds. So we're so glad to have Kim here with us today.
And this week is my mom's birthday. She was be turning 84 years old. She passed last year, and taking care of her was really inspired me for this episode. So this one's personal and important. Not just for me, I think, but for everybody who's taking care of their elder parents.
Yeah, absolutely. Kim, thank you so much for being with us.
Oh, you're welcome. It's good to be here.
Yeah, this is something that a lot of us are starting to have to tackle and face that maybe we didn't see coming.
Yeah, I think that you never really know that this is coming when it does happen. You know, and then you're thrust into a situation that can be very difficult at times.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. It is very difficult to deal with this both as a spouse or as the adult children, knowing when to step in.
Oh yeah, because even though sometimes, like with my mom, she wanted to keep doing things, but she wasn't, able to keep doing things like she wanted to. So we really had to step up. My sister took care of her for the first 2 years, and then I had her for the last 2 years. And thank God I had my wife Betty Jo. She was amazing with her, and it really helped me out a lot.
Well, and driver's licenses, let's start there.
Yeah.
What are some of the things, what do people need to know as they come close to this stage?
Well, that's where I was lucky. My mom decided she wanted to stop driving when she was, I think when she turned 79. She decided she didn't want to drive anymore. She was done, which was good for us because we didn't have to, stop her from driving. She was done, she said. She just wasn't thinking clear enough to be a driver. But how do we help people who are going through this?
Well, that was definitely lucky for you that she was ready to let go when it was time to let. Driving is such a symbol of independence.
Yes.
And it is hard as you start to age and all the things that you start to lose. And driving is a big one. And so for some people, that is a real challenge when it's no longer safe for the person to drive. And yet they're not ready to give it up. So some of the strategies are, having the doctor write a letter to the DMV. In some states that will work. And then they might have to come in for a test. I've heard other experts recommend that you just try to hide the keys and come up with different reasons why they can't drive. So those are a couple of solutions. But again, you were very fortunate that your mom was ready to stop when it was time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it still didn't stop her from backseat driving, trust me. Didn't stop her from that, that's for sure.
So and legally, kind of how does the responsibility work? Like as the child, and the tables kind of turn, how does this go for, can you take us through kind of being proactive in a sense, and also kind of what are some of the mistakes and what people should be doing?
Yes, well, it's definitely good to be proactive. And again, ideally, when somebody is willing to have a conversation on the legal side, it is important to look at getting certain estate planning documents in place, like powers of attorney for healthcare, powers of attorney for finances. So later on, when the person can't manage those, you have the legal authority to help them. So it's really important to get those in place. And of course, also to look at, wills and trusts, which deal with where the property goes after death, but the powers of attorney allows for managing it during a period of incapacity. So ideally, someone will be ready to get all of their affairs in order and go through the process of putting together a good estate plan with a qualified attorney in your state.
Well,
So that is essential.
well, I'll tell you
Good
where.
step.
What my mom did was she hid basically her medical issues from us, from me and her kid, me and my brother and sister. So when we had to do stuff medically for her, we had no idea what was going on, because I think people at that age had back in my mom's era had a tendency of hiding things from their kids. You know, if something was wrong with them, they didn't want us to know, or I guess to worry us. How do we get through that?
Yes. So a lot of times people don't want to admit that they have a problem and will do everything they can to keep it hidden from the adult children. So I mean, some of the suggestions are to have regular contact. And I know, as you know, adult children in particular, if you still have minor children, you're busy with your lives, work, your children, but it's really good to add in regular phone calls, regular in-person visits. And so then you have sort of a baseline of how things are, so that you can be a little bit more aware as things start to slide. But if the contact is sporadic or not happening very frequently, then it's really hard to know. And sometimes family members don't even know until the emergency situation happens.
Well, yeah. Well, see, my mom, she was good at not allowing us to take her to the doctors. She was very good at that. And I think if we could have gotten in there early enough, we could have found out what was wrong. But my mom, she had 4 brain tumors, and I believe she knew about those early on, but just did not want to tell us.
Yeah.
And it was tough because every time we say, "Hey, Mom, we're going to take you to the doctor," she's like, "No, you're not taking me to the doctor. You can drop me off, and I'll go in by myself. You're not taking me." That and it was a battle, and it was too much of a battle.
And
so
we gave
in a lot.
How do you work with that? Because I think legally, I mean, can you speak to that, Kim?
Yes, it is a battle. If somebody doesn't want to go to the doctor,
or
that's a
doesn't
big
want you
challenge.
kids to go with her, like her adult.
And they don't want you to go with. There's not much legally that can be done. Of course, you know, you can always consult with an attorney in your state, but the person has the right to refuse treatment.
Yeah.
And so if they're refusing to go to a doctor, it does leave you in this tough situation, in which case then you just have to try to work at the non-legal solutions of trying to get involved and persuasive in whatever way might work with your loved one, but to stick with it, and to not give up.
Yeah, I think that's the key, is not giving up on them and just continue to try to do the best you can to make them see your side of it. I agree with that 100%.
So I guess,
Yes.
so you're kind of saying the biggest mistake will be like losing that touch with them, so that you don't know kind of what the normal is for them. You lose track of that baseline if you don't stay in that regular contact. Is that kind of what you're?
Yes, it's you lose track of the baseline. You know, also not on the legal side, but it's also a time where you can deepen a relationship, particularly at the end of somebody's life. So trying to be there more and more is really, really important. And it also helps the person who needs assistance to have that time with their loved ones.
Yeah.
What now tell me, what's the difference between a will and a trust and a living will? What's the difference between that?
Okay, and there's a lot of terminology out there, and people confuse it all the time. A will is a last will and testament, and in that document you state who's going to receive your assets when you die, and who's going to be in charge of your estate.
Okay.
A trust accomplishes the same types of things. It says who gets your assets at your passing and who's going to be in charge. There's different terminology. A trust avoids the probate process. And so probate is where you go through a court proceeding to pass assets to people that are entitled to it. And in most states, it's costly and can be avoided by having assets in a completely funded trust. And then a trust has other benefits where you can specify the terms of how you want your loved ones to receive the assets. For a lot of people, it's just leaving it outright. But for other people, like, no, they don't want to leave it outright. They want to have terms under which their beneficiaries are going to receive the assets, and to make sure it goes to certain people or doesn't go to other people. And so you can be a lot broader in a trust, and accomplish objectives, pass on values. There's a lot that can be done in a trust.
That you can't do like in a will. Is that what you're saying? Like,
Well, in a will, you can create what's called a testamentary trust. You can put a trust into a will.
Okay.
But in most states, that means you're going to go to probate and you're going to account every year to the probate court. So you really want to avoid the court intervention. And if you put it into a trust, then you don't have that court intervention.
What happens when siblings aren't getting along? What happens in that one? Does it end up usually in
those
probate
can
court
be so
because of that?
ugly and sad.
Yeah, when they make it, because
What
like
happens?
me and my sister and brother, it was fine. Everything was great. We worked together and everything was fine. We split everything down the middle. That's just how we are. But what happens if it's not like that?
So that's great for you. Again, your family was working together, cohesive, and that's wonderful. So for a lot of families, it ends up being a fight. And sometimes that fight begins before the person passes, trying to persuade mom to make them in charge or give them more, or fighting over the money. That can cause a lot of problems. So ideally, the parent is going to get to an attorney, put together a good estate plan, and then not have these things happen. But when they do happen, it usually means going to court, which is costly. Attorney's fees are expensive. There's hurt feelings, and it can sever a family for generations. So ideally, you want to plan ahead, and even if a parent does not want to leave an equal distribution, there are ways to do that ahead of time, and ideally with some good communication and some good planning to try to minimize that. But sometimes those fights are just inevitable.
Yeah, I don't want you telling us who, but can you just give us an idea of something you had to deal with that was really tough? Of course, without saying the names, but like.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Like. Yeah.
So I mean, we see a lot of times where one adult child has a hard time launching, and so they come back and they live with mom and they're helping mom, and they begin to take over the aspects of mom's life or dad, and it's from mom needs the help, but then the other siblings who are not there are like, wait a minute, you're taking all this money, that stuff is getting transferred, that's not what mom wanted. And it does become quite a challenge. In our state, there was a lot of issues about a caregiver child receiving more of the estate. And so we ended up getting a law put in place where if a caregiver gets more than what's called an intestate share, it's presumed to be under undue influence.
Gotcha.
Other laws might have similar states. It kind of recognizes that when a person near the end becomes reliant on somebody, then they might end up losing a bit of their free will to make decisions.
Makes sense. Yeah.
So you can still do that. You can still leave to a caregiver. We just and under our law, you have to go to another attorney and have independent review to make sure that the person's not under undue influence.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
What should we know about the power of attorney? I mean, and why is this such a game changer in elderly care?
Okay, the power of attorney. Power of attorney, there's two types. One would be for healthcare. One would be for finances. So on the healthcare side, it allows the person that's named to make healthcare decisions, as well as follow the wishes that are specified in the document. So that's really important to have on the healthcare side. It's good to have those conversations with loved ones. It's a tough conversation, but it's a good one to have. On the financial side, its authority is given in the document, banking transactions, real estate transactions, whatever you put in there. And then it allows the person that you've named the ability to handle the finances. So these are good tools to have in place. I mean, for a family that's not having any drama, let's just say mom has a stroke, ends up in the hospital, then in a nursing home, and now you want to pay the bills, but you don't have the ability to access any of her accounts because there's not a power of attorney in place. Then a lot of times you have to go to court and get a guardianship. which could have been avoided with planning ahead.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
With the power of attorney for finances.
So you need a power of attorney for like the healthcare side of things, and then a power of attorney for the financial side. And then did we talk about the living will? I know we asked about that, but I don't know if we talked about the details of what that is.
Yes, the living will. So the living will is a shorter document that has to do with whether you want life-sustaining treatment if you're terminal. And so the terminology is a little bit confusing because it's got the word living, like a living trust, and then it's got the word will, like a last will and testament, but it's neither. It's just a document that says if you're terminal, you don't want to be sustained. So it relates to the healthcare side. In some states, it has a different name, like a declaration to physicians.
So that's the document, like kind of when they talk about like a do not resuscitate order, those types of things, it's related to that document, right?
Yes, it's similar to that type of document. And on the healthcare side, it's all governed by state law. So each state has something similar. So, but they will have different names. In some states, it's called a healthcare proxy, for example.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, good to know. So it sounds like it's something you prepare as part of the estate plan, but it's got really not much to do with like the financial side of things. It's got to do with the medical side, like the medical power of attorney. Okay, cool.
Yes.
How do you suggest protecting aging parents from like scams and financial abuse, things like that?
That is a big one. That is something that we see a lot. And there are kind of in two different categories. One is the person who infiltrates their life and actually gets them named on documents and gets the house transferred to them. We see that a lot, particularly in our town where a lot of people don't have family nearby.
Gotcha.
And it's huge. There's just a lot of people who will do that. I mean, this is criminal to do that.
Yeah.
But it happens a lot. And then there's the other side that's more through the computer and otherwise, like people calling with the lottery scams and if you send this money, you'll win more money.
Yes.
And
I mean, even as advanced as I had my grandmother when she was still alive with Facebook, someone called impersonating one of her grandkids and actually had details from his Facebook profile to talk about that. They convinced my grandmother that they were him.
Really?
Yes.
Did she send the money?
She was calling, luckily the failsafe was my grandmother couldn't drive. So she called my mom and was like, I need you to take me to the store right now. We've got to transfer money. And she really didn't want to tell my mom why, because they had told her some story that I had a really bad night and I'm in jail and I need the money and I just don't want anybody to know. And so she was trying to keep a secret for my cousin's sake.
Oh, wow.
But it was a whole scam. And it was scary because of the Facebook. They were able to like really convince her that it was him.
Yeah. One of my friend's moms got scammed out about 10 grand.
Really?
They sent 10 grand. He sent
Wow.
10 grand to her. And it's one of those, I think, Indian companies saying that your grandson's going to go to jail, that blah, blah, if you don't pay this money. And that's how they got scammed out of. I know with my mom, I used to have to get her phone when she was sleeping, delete things off of it because she would love these little things that were these gangs, but they would charge her money every month, that were wrong, was wrong.
I'd go out there and she'd be talking to somebody, remember?
Yeah.
Because we took care of her the last 2 years.
Yeah.
And if she was on the phone for a while, I'd be like, who are you talking to, Mom? Because sometimes people would just call.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. I'm sure you've got even more crazy stories.
Yeah, because people call, because I hang up on people when they call, when they call me. Talking about, this is, you're going to go to jail. And I got, but if you know where I live, come and get me. And I hang up on them, because it's a scam. It's crap. I know I ain't in trouble no more. So it's just a bunch of mess.
Yeah, there are a lot of scams. And then as people become more frail and they become less able to protect themselves. Yeah. Particularly if they're at the start of losing their capacity. And then they do become embarrassed and ashamed to admit that happened. So it's a bit of a cycle. So ways to avoid that again are having that routine times when you contact them and have an open dialogue. If the person is open to it, allowing to have some type of oversight. So for some people, they will say, okay, they'll give the trusted child the ability to look at transactions online to make sure that there isn't anything suspicious. There's always this balance between independence and, and oversight. So the better the relationship it is, the easier it is to get the good balance.
Yeah, that's one of the things we're able to do that, to go through and looking through her things and see what was there. Also, I would like to know, what do you personally learn with working with all these families? What have you learned about, what have you learned about them going through this stage of life? What have you learned from that?
Well, one of the things that I have learned is that life is short, and to enjoy the precious moments. It is so easy to get caught up in the stress of our lives and our day-to-day, but each moment that you get to spend with your loved one is precious. And to really, soak it in and enjoy it. And the other thing I know I've heard from, couples that work their whole life and retired, and then one of them gets stricken with some type of form of dementia or other thing, and then now they don't get to do the things they wanted to do. And so another is to not put off for way off in the future things that you want to do. I'm
a big thing on that. That's the thing, is you don't put off, what you want to do in your life now, because you may not be able to do it. You just don't know what could happen. Someone can get stricken with something and you won't be able to go and have fun and do the things that you were normally, used to doing. That's for sure.
So it almost seems like there is no too early as far as having these kinds of conversations with your parents. But how do you kind of
how do you start the conversation?
How do you have these?
How do you start the conversation?
Because her parents are in the 70s, so how do you start that conversation with them?
So how do you start the conversation? Well, one way is if, for example, you've heard about something in the media. Oh, I just listened to this podcast and they were talking about this, and we should start this conversation. Let's talk about it.
That's a good idea.
Or,
well, the good thing with your parents is they went through
something happens to a friend.
Yeah.
Oh, my friend's mom didn't plan, and they're having a big fight in court. I don't want that to happen to our family. Can we talk about it? So, you just kind of open up the door. If the person is willing, great. If they're not, you have to honor that, and maybe, try again at another time.
Yeah, that's the good thing about your parents. They've gone through what your dad has gone through with his dad, and then they saw us go through with my mom. So
well, and also his brother. There was another kind of just thing to look out for is he had a brother who was hospitalized for an extended period of time, and his home was sitting vacant. And people broke in, and there was a substantial identity theft that occurred.
Yeah.
People grabbing his mail and going through and rifling through and finding important papers, and a lot of theft and fraud occurred that way too. So being mindful of there being an empty house somewhere, and what kind of information is going to be, kind of broadcast to the neighborhood if there's nobody, the mail is starting to pile up, things like that, being aware of, when you're out of time on vacation. But it's the last thing you want to think about when you're dealing with one of your loved ones in the hospital. But there are some of these practical concerns to pay attention to.
Yes, absolutely. Vacant homes can be problematic. So you definitely want to get in and have ideally somebody very trustworthy, make sure it's secure.
Yeah, I think that's definitely. Now, if you can wave a magic wand to fix one broken part of the care system in the U.S., what would it be?
That's probably a pretty tough question.
It could be.
It is a big one. One of the things is that when people get the memory issues, the Alzheimer's or dementia, and they go into a nursing home for a long time, their savings can get wiped out. And it's not fair to those families. So if I could wave a magic wand, it would be to have that type of care paid for by Medicare. And it's not going to happen, but that's my magic wand.
I think that they should be, because I think I've seen in some countries where they take care of their elderly, But I did see, like in Japan, the elderly, some of them can't afford. So what they're doing is they're committing petty crimes to go to jail because they're getting 3 meals a day and they're being taken care of.
Wow.
But that's a terrible way to have to, to have to do it. It's terrible. I think you're right. I think we should find a way to take care of our elderly. We just should, because they're an important part of this country is to where we are today.
Yeah.
That would be a good thing.
Well, and I as we're talking about having those kinds of conversations with your parents and your family, I think it's really important also to remind people that the priority shouldn't be on like the financial aspects of things. I know that there's some situations where my ex-husband actually did estate planning as an attorney, and I've just been involved in helping with his practice of seeing situations that were just so tragic and so sad that the money is really enough to tear apart a family, and it shouldn't be. And I just want, as you're having those conversations, to kind of keep that as like front of mind, that this isn't really about money. This is about people that we love and family relationships. I know that some family relationships can be really hard.
Yeah,
because there's some that are just not.
But I agree. I would rather,
healthy,
me and my brother and sister would rather have my mom here than any money she left us. That doesn't matter. We'd rather have her here. That was the most important thing, was being able, because even a couple of days ago, I wanted to call her, and I can't call her. And that's, for me, more tragic than any dollar amount ever can be, not to be able to call her and to just talk to her. So,
do you have any advice that you share with families on that, or?
Yes, one of the things I share a lot is, of course, people come to the attorney to get their estate planning in order. And after getting the estate planning in order, to have the relationships with the family, nurture them as much as possible, because it's great to have the documents in place. But what really makes a difference is having the solid relationships to make sure the documents end up working well, but also in terms of transmitting values. And that comes through spending time together and building the relationships.
Yeah, that was one of the things. My mom, we were made to have a strong relationship between me and my brother and sister. I've instilled that into my kids also, is to have a very strong relationship with your siblings, because it's important. At the end of the day, when we're gone, that's all you got left. You don't want that being blown by something stupid.
Yeah.
Do you have any funny or heartwarming stories that you could talk about, about navigating through aging, together?
I definitely have some good stories. Well, one is almost heartwarming, but one mom, she had just one son. And so she did get her documents in place, and she named her son. And she didn't name any backups. And then the son, he got Alzheimer's. Mom was still alive.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so now son was married. And so the wife comes in, and she's now taking care of her husband, has Alzheimer's and all the things that entails. And of course, he and his mom were very close to one another. And so she is like, okay, I know he's going to want me to help out his mom. But she wasn't named in any of the documents. She didn't have any authority. So we ended up having to get guardianship. And so, but she did step in. She took care of her husband. She took care of her mother-in-law. Nice. And then she became an advocate and started support groups, and took everything that she learned and shared it out with love into the community. And so that has a couple of different lessons. One is on the estate planning side, you try to look at backups. We don't like to think that anything's going to happen to our child before us, but you still want to have, take a look at those contingencies when you're putting your plans in place. And then on the other side is, I do see some of the caregivers, after they've gone through this, they become beacons in the community to help others through this, and take what they've learned to make other people's lives better.
That's good.
I love that. Can we talk about one more thing before we close off? I want to get your insight on hospice, because that was something that when they brought that up to us in the hospital, we weren't really, we didn't really understand what it was and how it works. And it's just something that I feel like I wish I'd known a little bit more about before we were facing it head on. Yeah. So can you tell us about that?
Yes. Hospice is a model of care for someone who is terminal, where they don't always treat the underlying illness, but they provide palliative care and to make to deal with the pain, to make the end of life as good as possible and have a good passing. A lot of people don't like to think about that, but they are well trained in end of life, and they have great counselors and a great model. And so, no, it's a really excellent option that's available. And this is typically paid for by Medicare, so it is available to help families. And they offer grief counseling even after the person passes, and their counselors are really great. The whole model is outstanding.
I think it's great. The only thing that was a little crazy was when my mom passed away that night. They called us I think it was that morning, early morning, saying, "Hey, we got to come get the medical equipment." I was like, okay. I mean, I wasn't even like ready. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We were still like,
Just a little bit about what that kind of looks like. So we're in the hospital and they come to you and say, okay, the doctors think it's time to kind of consider hospice as an option. Yeah. And so that's sort of like a signal, I guess, that, hey, they think that the time is drawing near. And like, that's how you felt, right? Like that's sort of the signal to people to say, hey, this is time. Yeah. It's coming.
And that's tough for people.
And what you're saying about, so it reminded me of when Mom had passed, we needed a funeral home like right away. Like I was literally on the phone at like 9:30 at night calling places. Thank heavens the funeral places had like call centers and things like that, because it was outside of business hours. That was another thing I wish that I had known, is that we needed to have a place picked out. Like once you're considering hospice, it's a good time to also find that funeral home and know where because as soon as they pass, they want to move things along, and they want to know where you want to send them. And so you're not having to frantically call places, at 9:30, 10 o'clock, or who knows at night. That was, I wish something I had known was like, I needed to pick that out like right away and know where they were going to go. And then the other thing I was going to say is that the timeline can be, that is the part where it gets to be really tricky, because nobody can tell you how long. And so, Mom came home on hospice and was only home for one day.
Yeah, one day, and that was it.
Yeah, and but it is just such a hard thing. I think I'm still processing it.
Yeah, but I think for me, the thing that I've been around people who have passed, and when my mom passed, my spiritual realm, I knew my mom's soul was no longer theirs. It was gone. And that was just a shell. And I was okay with them moving her that night, because I've seen the result of leaving a body somewhere the next day, and then you have to look at the person that way, and you don't want to look at the person that way, believe me. When they start bleeding from every orifice, it's kind of crazy, but that's what happens pretty fast. And at that point, I had her moved, so that I don't have to see that and have to go through that emotionally. I want to remember her as she was and not as that.
Yeah, absolutely. So funeral planning is, I guess, an extension of this as well. Yes. And actually, I wrote a book, My Last Gift,
an essential end-of-life planner. And it is available on Amazon, and it helps you go through all of this type of information and gather it all up in one place. So all the things that a person should know to plan ahead.
And what's your book called?
It's called My Last Gift.
My Last Gift.
An essential end-of-life planner.
I will link to that in the show notes, because that's your approach.
That's
like
important.
if you're facing this and you want to be able to be prepared, I think that's your strategy. One, you say, "Hey, I was listening to this podcast." That's how you bring it up, right? Yeah. And then you order that book.
Yeah.
And you go through the checklist.
We could have used that book.
Yeah, for sure. That would have been super great.
For sure. You know, but the one good thing about, is that I'm glad my mother is no longer in pain and she's able to, to be better. And that's the thing. I think the important thing is that you don't want to lose your parent, but at the same time, you don't want to see your parent suffering and going through anything. And I think that's the part about it, especially spiritually. when you look at it that way, you know?
Yeah.
And thank you so much for being here with us and helping us with this. It gets very crucial and it can get very serious, but at the same time, I think if you keep it light, you know, with your parents and the people that you love, it'll go a lot further. And, you know, families work together, take care of your parents, work together to take care of each other, because when you lose them, that's all you have left is your brother and sisters.
And
that's
Kim, you wrote another book too that has more like answers to questions as well, right?
That's what this book is.
Okay.
My Last Gift, the Essential End of Life Planner.
Okay, perfect.
It's basically where you write the answers to the questions, and it helps you think of all of those issues. So like you were talking about how you wish you had known that, this covers everything.
So this is a guide and a checklist and a workbook all in one. It sounds perfect.
Yes.
Okay, great. Yes. Thanks again,
Thank
Kim.
you so much. And now today we're going to talk about my mom's favorite TV shows.
For our ToddFlix.
My ToddFlix. And let me tell you, she would stream she had watched these shows when they were on TV live, but then she started streaming them again, and one of them was Perry Mason with the old Raymond Burr, the old one, the old Perry Mason, Matlock.
I have to tell them about Perry Mason because Mom, when I would watch these with her, because I love these old classics too. And she would always tell me, because towards the end of her memory was kind of going. So every time we watched, she said, you know what? This guy has the bluest eyes, and it's in black and white.
Yeah, I know.
But I guess she knew it.
Yeah, because she probably
and
saw
she
him
was
in
like,
person.
he had the prettiest eyes, and all of us, all me and my friends, we just loved Perry Mason and his eyes.
And then she also used to like Murder, She Wrote.
Murder, She Wrote with Angela Lansbury. That was one of my favorites to watch with her. And then Matlock, we loved the music.
Matlock with Andy Griffith. Yes, Andy Griffith.
We would listen to we would kind of like dance along. It has the best, I don't know what the style of music is. It kind of like ragtime or
no, it's more of
it is so
it's classic TV. So if you want to stream these with your parents, you should, because I know your parents will know these shows, not the young parents, a little bit on the
Hey, I
60s,
grew up
70s.
on Matlock too.
Well, yeah.
I love Matlock and Murder, She Wrote.
Oh my gosh, that's about the only TV show she grew up on.
I love those old mysteries, the classics. They're so good.
I try to watch them, but it's too slow for me. But
no, these are great shows.
Yeah, well, thank you guys, everybody, for being here with us, and remember to like and subscribe.
Dang.
We's out of here. Dang is produced by my wife, Bettijo Bridges, in collaboration with Star Worldwide Network Studios, and edited by our daughter, Adelie Ann.
She's also the musician responsible for our theme music, so go check out Adelie Ann wherever you stream your music. Have a question or topic you want us to cover? Send us your suggestions at dangpodcast.com.
Do me a favor. Please subscribe and rate our podcast to make it easier for others to find. Have a great week.